You can start whenever you want.
Hi, good morning. This Finance Committee meeting is called to order on Wednesday, July 6th at, I have 10:34. At this time, in attendance is Alderwoman Finlayson and Alderwoman O'Neill. At this time, I will accept a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam Chair, move approval of the agenda as written.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our June 1st, 2022 meeting.
Motion to approve.
I will second it.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
I think so.
I guess we closed up business for fiscal year 2022, so we just have, is that correct, Finance Director? No, congratulations. And so we have one piece of legislation on our agenda, which is O37-22, which is the Arts in Public Places Bill. And just as a general summary, as we probably all know by now, the AIPPC was very fortunate in getting state allocation of the hotel tax, which is 3% of our general fund. So therefore, this legislation deletes language in our city code appropriating a percentage of our general fund to arts in public places, because that would be duplication. Just as simple as that. I will accept a motion to adopt on first reader.
Madam Chair, it's been approved on first reader. Are you asking for a motion to give a favorable or an unfavorable recommendation?
It's been a month since our last meeting. Yeah, I'll accept a motion for a favorable or unfavorable recommendation.
I'll give it a favorable recommendation, but I'm interested in discussion.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, let's open it up for discussion.
Madam Chair, would you give explanation as to the supplanting of funds and if that's actually what's happening? I don't think there's a total understanding of where the funds that have been allocated by the state are coming from.
Yeah.
And how that impacts the city's budget.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think based on the initial response, it does deserve that explanation. I'll go first. It's because I wrote the legislation, but also you can chime in. But my understanding, and I'm pretty certain, I'm certain of this, is it was the last General Assembly that AIPPC went to the state legislature during General Assembly, and they were successful in getting 3% of our hotel tax. Just quick summary is that at the time, 17% of the hotel tax was going to the visitor center, and 3% of the hotel tax was going to the county arts. So leaving 80% going directly back to our general fund. That year, AIPPC was successful in obtaining an additional 3% allocation, and then Alderman Gay was successful in getting another 3% for the Housing Trust Fund. So that reduced our allocation down to 74%. Basically, very simply, that 3% that is taken from our general fund is really us giving AIPPC 3% of our general fund. So yes, to all of those concerned, we are contributing 3% of our general fund.
I would say 3% of our hotel
tax allocation.
Yes, and it's actually called, in law, it's called the occupancy tax.
Okay.
It used to be called a hotel motel tax.
Yeah.
And yes, it is us providing money to AIPPC by designating 3% of that revenue source to AIPPC.
Right.
And it's now mandated in state law, so there's no reason to have a local law addressing the need for funding.
Right. And it does not mean that we are not supporting arts in public places. This essentially is.
And compared to what we had been funding AIPPC on an annual basis, it's a significant increase. So they are getting more under this 3% designation.
Yeah, I think we can say safely that it's about three times as much this year.
Could you tell us what that means? 3 times as much as
So
what?
we had been giving them an annual, in my years here, we had been giving them $40,000 annually. In the year that, the first year, it's FY22, where the law took effect, we're going to be giving, we estimated about 120,000. I think it's going to be a little bit more than that. So they're going from 40,000 to at least $120,000.
And let me, I just want to be clear, and I want the residents to be clear. This additional 120,000 is coming out of hotel taxes that would be normally coming to the city, and we would be making the decision as to how that is to be spent. But now the legislature is telling us how we must spend that $120,000.
We're mandated to put the 3% in a fund for AIPPC.
Okay. I just want to make sure that that's very clear.
Absolutely, understand.
So our allocation has tripled, as you've said. And they are not going to be losing any funding on any perspective.
No.
The only thing that could, it goes on with the proportion of the occupancy tax. So if we had a scenario where occupancy taxes dropped off significantly, it might drop down below what we had been funding them. But in these last couple of years, we're getting much more for them. So there could be a scenario. I just want to caution you, there could be a scenario where that 3% number could be lower. You know, it's not guaranteed. It's based on how many occupancy taxes we take in.
One thing that they, in discussion after this was passed, is they said, the chair of AIPPC said, this way they were not, crossing their fingers on any new city administration on whether or not they would continue to fund. This kind of guarantees that they get this funding regardless of what city administration there is. One concern, and I think I emailed you this, and we should probably talk about publicly, is, well, how does a new administration know this? You know, who's to say that this occupancy tax comes in and a new administration would ignore this state mandate and it would get lost in our general fund somewhere? Could you speak to that?
In order to earmark the 3%, as the funding comes in, we have a process in our office, the finance office, that has now 4 recipients that, as quarterly, we review all the occupancy taxes that have come in, and we have a process there whereby we are earmarking all these pieces of funding. And 2 of the entities that get the money, they're getting them in checks. So that process is established in my office. That would be the continuity to carry it into the next administration, even if the next administration let all the finance leadership go, there would still be that continuity within my staff to understand that this established process is a requirement of the law.
I say that because there was concern about us just deleting the language and not explaining why, or what you just explained as far as any continuity. Our Office of Law said our code is not meant to elaborate on why on every piece of legislation. That's usually in the staff report. So we're not amending this. It is right now as it stands, it's just a deletion of that language.
Well, Madam Chair, you are adding a considerable new language So it's not just a deletion, but you're replacing what's deleted with the new paragraph.
But not explaining where the new source of funds is coming, yeah.
Then we would have to rely on the finance department to share with us their process to make sure, as a reminder at budget time, that X number of dollars has to go to arts and public places.
So you will see we have an Arts and Public Places fund that is in the budget book, along with all the other listed funds. It's one of those smaller funds, and you would see every year their fund balance, what we're allocating to them in the new year, and their spending for the year. You would see that in those charts that we provide.
You mentioned what happens if things change in the future. I think if we look at the record of spending of arts and public places, they have not generally exhausted the funds that they've been allocated. And now they're being allocated considerably more. So I'm not sure that should be a concern going forward. I mean, they could always change their programming to be able to utilize all the funds
So
each
I
year.
would say in the recent fiscal year, they have picked up spending. And I don't know if that was in response to the additional funding or if that was just something they're doing themselves as a part of their programs. It has picked up. They have spent a substantial amount this year, and I don't know if that goes forward, but there's it's not a unlimited funding source. So this is a guarantee of the 3%.
And we do want them to spend it. We do want them to enhance their programming. I mean, that's what this is all about. Thank you.
I can add to that, as a former member of that commission, and in 2020, we had in place a plan that was going to spend all of the money that had been left over from the year before and what we were hoping to get in 2020. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. And so we didn't spend most of it. I know that a few of the artists that we had planned to use, we did go ahead and honor those contracts moving forward, and then rebooked them for the following year, a guaranteed rebooking since they hadn't had a chance to play. So I believe that the commissioners are enhancing what they're programming, and really working hard to include art in public places in all of the wards and not concentrating so much on Ward 1.
Right.
May I ask, what was the level of spending in 2020?
It was going to be right at 40,000, and it dropped down to about 15 or 17.
I don't have it right in front of me. I could find it if you.
Yeah, but that was because of the COVID, but the expectation was that you would be spending 40,000 that year.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe this fiscal year 2023, their budget is over 200,000 because of carryovers from unspent monies from before.
Yes, there's some carryover coming forward. And if it turns out they ended up spending more in 22 than we had projected they were going to, then we'll adjust that balance downward with our process of funding. I mean, if I didn't think they were going to spend it all and I projected an amount, but they end up spending it through June 20, the end of June, then we can't allow them to spend 200,000 if we didn't have that much to begin with.
Yeah.
I think it's important to indicate, you said as of budget time 2023, they had over 200,000.
If you combine what we thought they would carry forward with the allocation from 23 that we're projecting, they were going to have around $200,000 to spend in 23.
So it sounds like they carried over almost $80,000.
That was our projection.
Right.
I'll have to go back and look, because like you said, the spending picked up, especially in the spring. They started spending more on programs. So we'll have to review what we had estimated versus what we put in the budget.
Okay, great, thank you.
I do just want to reiterate as well, there was also concern that we would not contribute, this prevented the city from contributing any money to the arts, but there is still language in the code, regardless of the source of funding, that the city, 6.24.090, the city may provide money to performing artists and groups and organizations which promote or practice the performing arts. Monies may be used to support the direct cost of performances which are open to the public. So we still have that language in the code. And the other thing to address the concern about from administration to administration, and you spoke to this, but it is in the code, 6.24.020B, the fund is a continuing, non-lapsing fund to be maintained and administered by the Director of the Department of Recs and Parks. The Director of the Department of Finance shall hold an account for the fund. So that's codified. But lastly, which I think has been a subject in the past, is that they do have to shall submit not later than January 15th of each year a report of its activities for the prior calendar year. I know we've gotten recent reports, but we do want to make sure that we do get their report. Is that coming directly from Parks and Recs, or?
I have not seen a specific AIPPC report.
Oh.
We see, so
We've gotten some spending reports from Kate when asked.
that's just a summary of the total, correct? It's
Yes.
not a detail of what they're spending and what they're doing with their funding. It's just that, yes, we do provide that to them as they request it, and we do have that information available. But that statement that you read seems to contemplate something more robust.
Yeah.
As to what they're spending their funding on. And so we would just give you, here's what they spent in total dollars, and here's what they've
Okay.
encumbered, that's what we would provide.
Yeah.
There is a report that has been given to
Yeah.
us. This year, it was late. It was not submitted with the other commission reports.
It was very
But it was
long.
received because we had it as part of an agenda back in January.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I think they are treated like a board or commission, and they have to do annual reports. And whether it's Hillary or Regina, someone gathers those reports annually. So, and I believe they have been consistent in submitting their reports to the appropriate person.
Well, we look forward to a lot of, more activities and/or installations and diversity. And we fully support their work.
Madam Chair, are you ready for, we have a motion on the floor,
Yeah. So,
and it's been properly seconded.
so all in favor, all in support of a favorable recommendation for this legislation signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, I think we answered every possible question. And at this point, last on the agenda is a update from the finance director.
Madam Chair, before we go to the finance director, Captain McGiz is here. Captain, are you here for a special item or?
I thought I was, but
Oh.
I think it's for the city, I think it's actually going to be on the agenda for the city council.
Oh, what,
It was a grant that we got that was not already approved. So I had, with Katie, talked to Katie about it.
I think that was approved at the last council meeting, meaning we didn't have, if you're talking about what I was emailing you about a few nights ago, at the council meeting night, or is there another grant?
No, I think this was, I think it was.
Genevieve sent us a long-winded,
Yeah, that was from there. This was a grant that we got through the state. It's BJAC, but it's through GOCCP. So, yeah, so I talked with Katie, I didn't tell her, she didn't respond, but on my way down here, I talked to her, and she said it was going to be on city council, but
We're just
Is
pausing
this
for.
something that should be on the record,
Yeah.
this discussion, because you're not on the mic?
Yeah, at this point, you
Or
might need to be.
not?
I think we're just trying to figure out what's in the process here. There's an upcoming supplemental appropriation request for a grant that's not currently in the budget, correct?
Correct.
All right. And so he thought it was coming to you today,
Oh,
but I don't have any information on it.
but
And
I thought we closed the books on fiscal year 2022.
it's not a 2022, it'd be 2023, right?
Well, it started in FY '22, but it carries through into FY '23.
Have they given you additional funding?
Yes,
You might need to get on the mic at this point. If you talk, that mic is on.
Yeah.
You can talk freely on the mic. Yeah, so the public knows what we're speaking of, a potential grant issue. And introduce yourself.
Acting Captain Dave Megath, the Police Department. So it was a grant that we applied for in the fall. We had, I think, approved for the federal BJAG grant, but this one we got through the state, but it's still a BJAG grant. It came from the feds through the state, through GOCCP. And when we went to start arranging to, with the vendor to pay for services, I went to look for the grant number and couldn't find it. And that's when I realized that I don't think that we had submitted, I thought we had submitted the grant briefing document to update the amount that we got, but I couldn't find it. And I talked with Katie and she couldn't find it on her end. So, and she either said that it was going to be before the first Finance Committee meeting or the first City Council meeting after July 1st. So I thought it was today. I looked at the agenda. I didn't see it on there, but that was why I'd come down.
Thank you for your proactiveness, but it's not on our agenda.
Right.
It's not on today's Finance Committee agenda, and I know we have a draft of Monday night's meeting, but is it not on?
So it would come before you, before it goes to council.
Yeah.
It's not mandated, but it does typically come before the Finance Committee for discussion. And I touched base with Katie this morning, and she said she didn't have anything to go on today. So I've texted her, but no response. So probably nothing on this matter today.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Director Dickinson, your update?
Yeah, so I created my little informal report here on what we've been doing in the finance office, some of the major milestones, et cetera, that we've accomplished recently. We've just selected our new auditors for FY '22. It will be a new firm. We are sending out that notification to the winning proposal today. So I wouldn't want to mention a name here today. And then we're going to be contacting the other proposers in the next couple days. So we'll get that underway. It's a little late, and we have to establish a contract with the audit firm and start moving forward with all their planning steps. So that's going to put us a little bit under the gun as far as timing is concerned, but we'll work it out, and I have my assistant finance director working with them directly.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question?
Of course.
So what is the timeline for us receiving the audit? We'll get a report from the the new auditor.
So we're
correct?
hiring the auditors for the FY '22 fiscal year, which is just finished. They should be doing their work between now and the end of November and into December. We are hoping to have our report out in December this year. And providing we can do that, because that's been a challenge for us, providing we can do that, you would get the report from the auditors is delivered to the audit committee when the audit is complete. So it would be sometime after that date that the auditors would go before the finance committee, or before the audit committee, and deliver the audit report.
In the past, the auditors gave a presentation to the full council.
So we don't think we've done that in the last few years. I don't know how it was done before I came here. But once we had the audit committee established, I think they've been delivering the report to the audit committee.
Okay, so Alderman Arnett will recall past practice. But as chair of the audit committee, I'm sure he'll.
And there's nothing that prevents them from doing that. They could come before council. They are required to go before an audit committee or a governing board at the end of the audit to present some information and talk about the results of their audit.
Okay, thank you. We didn't always have an audit committee, so.
Right. That may have been when it changed.
Yeah. So
Well, that's great
thank
news.
you.
That's great news.
All right, so as you mentioned earlier, we're closing out the fiscal year 22 year in our system and opening up the new year, FY '23. That's a lot of work for my staff. There's a lot of timing issues involved in doing things in the right order. And we spent a lot of time in the last 2 weeks, my staff spent a lot of time in the last 2 weeks getting that closed down and the new year open. And Katie has just recently put in the new year budget, and she's got more work on the budget side to do too. So that's time consuming for my staff.
Do we still, it's sort of a moot point, but do we still get a quarterly report for the last quarter of fiscal year 2022?
Oh, you mean the budget report?
Well, yeah,
The quarterly budget to actual. Yes, we will do that for you.
Okay.
It wouldn't have every single item in it because we're still looking at invoices that we're paying in July.
Sure. Yeah.
And if they relate to the previous year, we'll accrue them back into the previous fiscal year. But it would have you an updated budget to actual, which Katie will be preparing for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Katie has magically appeared in council chambers, you know that, right?
That's good.
Yeah, she's talking
Figure out the status of the grant.
the grant, yes.
So one other thing, as you know, the P3 concession agreement,
Yes.
we're hoping to be near the end of that, but they're also working on the senior bond issue related to that, and I've got 4 or 5 meetings every week on that topic. And we're hoping to sell that the senior issue will go forward at the end of this month. And we're working really hard on the financial close, which involves, I don't know, seems like 20 people, 20 different representatives from different angles. Since we're working with partners, we're working with Medco, we're having these detailed calls. We're going over all the documents required for both the senior debt issue and the subordinate debt issue.
May I ask?
Yes.
I understand that you're going to the bond market on the 29th?
So we don't go to the bond market, Medco goes to the bond
Medco.
market, and that's their plan right now. You know, we've got all these multiple documents being lined up, these legal documents that have to go forward with it, and we're working on finalizing them, and they all have to be finalized before they can go to market.
I had requested, colleagues, that we have a presentation the day before. And I know everything won't be finalized until they're there. But I think it would put us in a better position to know what's going on if we have an idea as late as the day before they go to the bond market. And I know pieces change, and negotiations occur while there. But I just thought it would be important for us, even though the mayor puts his name on this document, not us. But at the end of the day, it'll come back to us, to address any issues. So was my request yesterday to Mr. Gerald. He had some reluctance, but I think, and we're off during the month of August. And so I was trying to brief us before we go on hiatus as opposed to calling us back for a meeting in August. So anyway, so Ms. Dickinson, I thought you should know that also.
Yeah, I assume that would be closed session, did he say, or working?
Oh, I don't know. Did he mention a meeting on the 27th?
No, I haven't heard.
You just mentioned closed
No,
session.
I'm asking if it would be a closed session.
Oh, I don't know. Would it be necessary?
I think that would depend on the circumstances and the timing and what kind of information we'd be talking about, and whether or not it would disrupt a pending marketing of bonds. So I think that's why he would be reluctant, and we're shooting for the 29th, but that might get delayed, and so trying to plan something right before that might disrupt the process, the legal process.
My request was not to reveal any confidential information that would jeopardize our position at the bond market, but to give us a general understanding, because we still don't have a general understanding of what responsibilities the city is taking on, and how the partners work. So,
Because procurement is, in our purview, I have a question regarding that. This delay, I'm assuming the AMRP group is still proceeding. And what I mean by proceeding is design documents for City Dock, et cetera, et cetera. There, as we all know, this is about City Dock and flooding and infrastructure, and we await this concession payment, et cetera, to proceed accordingly. So we have active construction going on, and we understand that there's no risk with them stopping. Is that correct? Is that something we can?
What was that question? There's no risk with them stopping?
What contract are they proceeding with?
Right now, the demolition and preparing the site is being conducted under an agreement that we already had finalized called a pre-development
Correct.
agreement.
Yeah.
In order to proceed with construction, this is why we're pushing to get this done, so the timing of the senior bond issue will continue the construction. Are you talking about the garage or the City Dock?
Well, garage first, and
Yeah.
you've addressed that, and it
I
does.
mean, the funding needs to move forward as
Yeah.
quickly as possible in order to continue with the construction of the garage.
Because it looks like they have started site preparation, so that's good. That works. Are they still proceeding? Because as you know, AMRP consists of other contract, what's the word? Entities. Architect, designers, et cetera. Are they still proceeding with City Dock plans?
Yes, we're still under the same general model that we had proposed originally.
Yeah.
With the private partner, AMRP, leading up those projects.
Good.
So we're still under the same model that we were before.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Do you have any questions on it? All right. Well,
So you want me to move on?
Yes,
There's
yes.
more on my list.
Yeah, that was a big. No, that's a big one. That's a big
So,
one.
yeah, so that's done with the AMRP. The new year brings all those payroll changes that we talked about with the salary changes, the bonuses. Some of the firefighters are getting stipends for ALS certification. Those are all things we have to work out here in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks and get them done through the payroll system. So that's a bit of a challenge, and an email went out today from the human resources manager to tell the employees, this is what you'll be getting, and here's the new pay scale. So we've just released the new pay scale to the employees.
Another question. Sorry, Ms.
No
Dickinson.
problem.
When will the employees cash, you know what I mean?
The $3,000 bonus check?
Exactly. Bonus check. That's what I was trying to get to.
Screen locked up. Hold on just a second. I think it's the 22nd. Hold on.
Or has something gone to the employees to indicate?
Yes.
An email
The
and
20
Something went to the-
We're planning on Friday, the 22nd. It's between our normal payrolls, and so we're going to do a special pay run in the week between the normal payrolls.
Okay. So is that the same time all contracted payroll changes or salary changes will take effect?
So all of the ongoing salary changes with cost of living increases and the scale adjustments are taking place for the pay period that begins tomorrow, because it is the first day of the first pay period that falls within July. We're implementing all increases now. At the beginning of a pay period, it's much, much less work for us on the payroll side. So it takes effect tomorrow. And that paycheck is actually paid out on the 29th. So those increases in the pay scale will be showing in the checks that are issued on July 29th. Because the payroll is a week and a half behind the end of the pay period.
So I assume HR is sending out something to employees to let them know?
They just did. It
Okay.
included when they would see the impacts of that and when we're planning to release the $3,000 bonus checks.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
I think it would be great to share also that we all got an email from city manager a couple weeks ago, I believe, that we have retained several police officers that we otherwise would have lost because they became aware of our recent increase in wages. So I thought that was a success story because that's our goal for retainage and recruitment.
Yeah.
Continue.
Okay. This time of year also, we spend a lot of time processing new contracts for all operating operating contracts, both for services and goods. We renew them at the beginning of the fiscal year. And we see those, we have to look at the budget levels and review the agreements and process those. So that takes up a substantial amount of our time, and it includes employees that are working under employment contracts too. So all those have to be renewed.
So contractual positions, et cetera.
Yes, yes. We call them employment agreement employees.
Okay, that's what they're called.
So they all have a contract, and it has to be renewed at the beginning of the fiscal year, so we don't commit beyond our budget year.
Okay. And also, I understand you'll be doing the same process, if you will, of our city leases?
Some renew on July 1. There could be some that are on a different timing, but most of them renew on the 1st of July. All right?
Yep.
I still have vacant positions, as you know, the procurement officer. We do have an interview set up with someone. I think it's tomorrow, but we'll let you know if that's successful. We have an accountant, one position that's still vacant. Katie will probably now be setting up interviews because we've had some applicants out there, but no time to handle the process because of the budget work. As you know, in the budget, we were given a budget analyst and a grants administrator position that are new. We'll be listing for those probably, though, in a couple months' time. As soon as we can get them listed, we'll have to get new candidates in and and
keep
see
us
what-
posted on that, specifically the grant administrator.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
And the end of July, there's a ARPA reporting deadline that we have to do. We've gotten ARPA funds both directly and through the county. So now we have 2 ARPA reports we have to do before the end of July. And the Finance Committee and the Council will be seeing the bond ordinance come forward. That's something that we bring to you every year based on the CIP that we've just passed during the budget process. Those capital project bonds have to have the authority, I have to have the authority to borrow on behalf of those projects. So the bond ordinance is that authority to borrow in order to fund those projects. And that'll be coming to you. I'm hoping to do it this week. I'm not sure if it'll be on your agenda for the 11th or not, but we're working on it.
Is there any concern about the bond market in that process of?
Not, well, as you know, the market's a little
Yeah.
I don't know, fluctuating now. But what we can do, we have a lot of options open to us when we borrow.
Okay.
We can sell long-term bonds if we think that is the best thing to do, but my financial advisors, Davenport, will tell me maybe we need to do a short-term bond line of ban anticipation note. It's a called a ban. It's a bond anticipation note. It's a short-term borrowing that would carry us beyond the fiscal year in order to sell long-term bonds at a later date when the market is more stable. So they will tell us at the time what the best avenue is for borrowing.
May I ask, are we in need of a ban?
So these are for our capital construction projects.
capital projects.
So we want to continue going with roadway, sidewalk,
Yeah.
et cetera. So we have to fund those pretty much yearly. Now, whether we do it with a short-term line of credit or we do it with a long-term bond, it depends on the market.
Have we already decided how much we need for a given period of this year?
No. You mean how much we're going to borrow?
Yeah, for projects that we can accomplish.
We have not determined the amount yet. It would be, your bond ordinance will give me the authority to borrow up to the amount needed for all those capital projects that have funding in FY '23 and prior years that we haven't issued, right? But we don't typically issue that much. We estimate how much we think we're going to spend, and we only issue debt for that amount.
I guess my question is, in the past, we have not been able to accomplish all the projects that we,
That's why we don't issue the whole amount of the debt.
Okay,
We work with DPW to come up with estimates on what they think they need in cash for spending for an 18-month period, and then we use that information to determine how much we're going to issue in debt.
okay, so that was my question. So DPW has, or is at least working on the list of projects that they expect to be able to finish this year.
Yeah,
and
we'll be
thus-
working with them in
Yeah.
August and September to determine the amount that we think we need.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Technical term here is, what about any straggler bonds, if you will, from previous years?
So that there are bonds for projects that have not yet been sold.
Correct.
Because the projects are behind.
Correct.
And that analysis that we do with Public Works includes all of those stragglers, as you would call them, all the unsold bonds from the previous years, and the current 23 bonds.
Okay. Got it.
So we look at all those projects and decide on a project-by-project basis what's in process and what needs bond money in the next. We usually look out about 18 months.
Okay. Thank you.
That was the last thing on my list. I don't know if anybody has any more questions.
You can codify that term straggler bond.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's known in the finance market. Yikes. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for all of your hard work. You're getting a little bit of a breather.
I didn't hear that. the
No.
breathing.
What is such a thing?
Usually in July I do, but the AMRP thing is
Oh,
like,
dear.
it's been,
Oh,
it's
dear.
continuing.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
constant with that, so it's not a slow time of year right now. August, hopefully, knock on wood, will, the recess, the council recess helps with the August timeframe, and maybe it'll slow down in August if we can get all of this finished.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, that completes the agenda. Unless anyone has anything for the good of the order, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okey dokey.
Okey dokey.
Is that our last finance committee meeting for this